Here's what they're going to come down to when we talk about D tackle, D ends, linebackers. Somebody's not going to be happy with the lack of playing time.
You're right about that.
There are going to be several players that are going to be the odd men out when it comes to snap. And I mean, there's going to be a big discrepancy between the first two levels of rotation and that third level. And this team has a pretty good problem of having third level depth at those positions. And somebody's not going to be happy watching the game from the sideline.
Agreed.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
And we're back. What's happening, everybody? Just wrap things up with Trey Thomas. He was incredible. If you missed any of it or in its entirety, just go to JAKIB Sports YouTube Network or JAKIBsports.com. You can catch we podcast all the interviews on there that we do. All right, so turning our sights to present-day birds, guys. And, there's a couple of position battles here, I think, either for starting spot or playing time and whatnot. But there's some really fascinating depth issues here from a depth chart. In other words, backups, that kind of thing. So let's start here with the wide receivers. Okay. I think it's a given A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. There's really not much argument there. The next two, would you guys say Quez Watkins is a lock? Zach Pascal certainly is if they brought him in free agency. Would you say that's fair? Top
yes.
four?
Yes.
Okay. How many generally are kept? 5 or 6? Does some of that depend on special teams?
Depends on the teams. Yeah. 5, 6. Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Of the next groupings, Rager, Hightower, Ward, Deion Kane, Devin Allen, the track guy, Britton Covey, the return man. Of that group, let's see they keep 1 or 2. And tell me if I'm missing somebody too. Who do they keep and how many?
See, there's the problem because you have 4 at least that you have to carry. And that's Quez, Pascal,
AJ,
Devontae, and
Smith and Brown.
AJ. Yep.
Those 4 will be here. But after that, I think you have to carry Jalen Rager.
Why?
Because he's a first rounder.
Yeah, but
in his third year.
Okay.
In his third year, you have to take him.
I think if he's still Derek, if he's still here now, like in other words, starting camp, I think he's probably going to be here too. I agree with Barrett
by default.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the right thing.
Nope.
But I think that's the way this plays out, simply because of where he was taken.
I think if Hightower emerges, because we still don't know the full arsenal of what John Hightower can give you. He's a long body. He has some speed. I'm a big Greg Ward fan. I think Greg Ward is tough as nails.
Yep.
They call him first down Greg for a reason. Every time he catches a pass is for a first down. He doesn't drop or a touchdown. He doesn't drop many passes. He's a good blocker as well. So I'm putting Ward and Hightower before Rager. Now I understand he has the first round pedigree, but I think this team is so frustrated. I don't think they want to go through another Nelson Aguilar scenario, not in terms of, Nelson going through the emotional things that he went through, but in terms of a guy who just has not gotten it for whatever the case may be. I don't think Howie is afraid in this case to cut bait because there's so much excitement about the evolving of Devontae Smith and, of course, with the presence of A.J. Brown. And if you listen to all the scuttlebutt on social media since the offseason, I think a lot of people, fan base, would applaud the Eagles if they cut Jalen Rager. And that takes a lot of – yeah, they would take a lot of pressure off this organization to delete him from the equation.
I think everything you just said makes sense, Derek. But if you wouldn't they have already done that if that was the case?
No, because you need to camp bodies. You need to camp bodies right now, man. You want to take, and you don't want your starters to get more than enough reps. You know what I mean? You want to camp bodies, and maybe somehow, some way, Rager's surprised. He's still a lower tier invest. He's a first round investment. See what I'm saying?
I guess so. I guess it makes sense. He's in camp.
Yes.
Maybe he plays well. Maybe somebody loses a receiver. Somebody goes down, which always happens. And you could pawn him off on somebody and you don't take a cap hit because you do still take it. He gets cut. That's a cap hit.
Yes, indeed.
So,
and I look at Covey and Allen. You can protect them on the practice squad to a certain degree.
Yep.
You don't have to just cut them.
So, Derek, let me make sure I'm understanding where you're coming from. You don't think he'll be here, Barrett? You think he will come September?
Yes, I think he will be here. And the reason why he's here right now, because they're just holding on the slimmest glimmering of hope that he might be a player, a feasible player.
The light comes on. Yeah, the light somehow comes on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it could, though, because if you look at it, he understands this is his last shot. He knows he has the shortest rope out of everybody there.
Yeah.
He understands that. So, I mean, they're thinking that, all right, the writing's on the wall. We went out and got 2 guys to replace you. You either put up or shut up.
Well, okay, so if that's the case, we could sort of debate whether Reagor's here or not. Who would be, like, say, the other one? Who would be the other one of that? If you're practice squatting Covey and Allen, does Greg Ward stick around? Does Hightower? Does Kane? Who's the other guy?
If Ward is not on the 53-man roster, then he will not be on this team. I mean,
somebody grabs him, don't you think?
Yeah. So anybody, I mean, John Hightower, you got to look at his size. He's 6'2", 190, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
He can run. Although he's on the practice squad all last year, they kept him there for a reason. His first year here, his rookie year, he played a lot, you know what I'm saying? But it seemed like they flipped the script last year, and Quez just went out there and just deboed his position, deboed his roster spot.
Right.
And, I mean, he's got to know the writings on the wall for him also.
Yep.
Yes, I was a draft choice. I was 6th round. I mean, I was a 5th rounder, but I just let my 6th round guy become the guy here.
Mm-hmm.
So, he knows he's got to, put up or shut up. And like you're right, Devin Allen, you know what I'm saying? He's just an experiment. They want to be one of those teams. They love being a team that they could take a guy that plays rugby and make him into a star. They feel the same way about Devin Allen. We got a track guy. We can make him into a star. And if we don't, no love lost. No sweat off their back. And Britton Covey, he has potential to be a kick returner. And that'd be the only way he makes the team. His size is just too much of a detriment to his health to be a wide receiver in this league.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's just too little,
That one's going to be interesting. The bottom tier of how that shakes out is going to be really interesting. That's for sure.
Who do you say? Who do you think?
See, to me, I think Reagor's here, right? So at that point, you're at 5. The problem with Reagor, too, is he can't play special teams for you.
Right. No.
And at least Greg Ward, he's not, God knows he's not breaking anything, but he's going to catch the ball, worst case scenario and secure it. I think it's an underrated storyline is the return game. We don't talk about it enough, but I'm going to say Reagor and Hightower. I'm going to say it's probably the end of Greg Ward. I don't think Kane, and I don't think Allen, and I don't think Covey. I'm going to say those guys.
Right.
That's where I'm at. Linebacker. Let's go linebacker here. So the way this looks, at least right now on paper, you got, and this gets a little confusing, Barrett. You could explain it. The way they're going to, I guess, categorize Brandon Graham here and Hassan Reddick could kind of be linebackers too. It depending on what kind of defense Eagles are playing. But middle linebacker, TJ Edwards. I guess this is in a traditional 4-3. TJ Edwards, Kaiser White's your weak side, and I guess you could call Reddick a strong side, or tell me how you think it works out, I guess. If
you look at it from a 3-4 system, and I think that's where you have to look at it, because I think it'll run. That's why they went out and got Davis to be that nose guard. They're going to run more of a 3-4 scheme. When you have a 3-4 scheme, this is the way I put it in my head. Some people think differently. I think of like this. You got a Sam linebackers, which is an outside rushing type of linebacker. That's where you have the Joey Porters, the Clark Hagans, those type of guys. Then you have a middle linebacker. And then right next to him in the linebacker position is the jack linebacker. And then the will linebacker is another rush in / drop and cover type of linebacker also. And that's the Hassan Reddick type of linebacker. So you got the Sam, who's a Hassan Reddick type of linebacker, and the will backer's a Hassan Reddick type of linebacker. So when I look at it, I'll start with the 2 guys at the Mike and the jack position who are virtually interchangeable, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just a Mike linebacker and a weak linebacker. One guy's a cover guy more so than anything, and one guy's a run stopper. When I played with the Steelers, I had, it was Larry Foote. Larry Foote was the guy that could, that would cover guys, and James Ferrier was the guy that was a Mike linebacker. He's the one that called the plays. Now, when you look at these guys on paper, at this point, you got to give the nod right now. To me, this is just me, as TJ Edwards being the Mike linebacker. The guy that's going to call the defense, be on the field, and be that captain, make sure everything happens. Then in the Jack linebacker, who's still a Mike linebacker, he's the weaker side Mike linebacker, you put Kazir White there. Now, this is going to be an interesting battle because everybody's talking about, Nakobe Dean being the starting Mike linebacker. It's going to take him a little while to become it. Eventually, I think he will be, but it's going to be a fight because TJ Edwards took 2 years to build himself and put himself in a position where they paid him, number one. Number two, he worked his ass off to be that Mike linebacker. He's the one that got those linebackers activated. When I say activated, he got them playing hard and going downhill and making plays on run plays. He's the guy that started, going down and hitting, when they had a double team, hitting the offensive lineman off the 3 technique so he can go make a play. He's the one that started playing the linebacker position where a linebacker is supposed to be played. So he deserves the right to be the starter. Kazir White, I think he's going to be the guy that's going to be an every down linebacker. He's going to be on the field the entirety of the game, even on third down. They may take TJ Edwards out the game if they're going to run like a dime front when they just have one linebacker. Kazir White will be that linebacker in the middle of the field that they would use in those type of situations. As the time goes on and Nakobe Dean, starts playing better, or they feel as though he's taking the next step, he might replace TJ Edwards. But at this point, it's Kazir White and TJ Edwards are those 2 stand-up linebackers. But in that mix, there's also Davion Taylor that nobody's talking about. He started with TJ Edwards last year and started playing pretty well. They like what he was doing. He just got hurt. He started being a guy that, started activating his play, coming downhill, making plays instead of sitting back at 5 yards deep. If he saw a run action going towards him, he started going downhill and making plays. So he's definitely in the mix of some people, that needs a play. An outlier on this whole thing is Sean Bradley. Sean Bradley he should have made the Pro Bowl last year as a special teamer. That's how good he is on this team.
Yep.
So I think he makes the team just because he's such a good special teams player.
So you can justify keeping that many.
That's seven linebackers. Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to get you guys to talk me through it too. Now let's switch over. Now let's go to the outside guys now.
All right.
The Sam and the Will linebacker. I just use this in my head because this is where I look at it in my head. That's why I have my number count when I played against this type of defense. Mm-hmm. The Sam and the Will. Sam being the linebacker that's usually over the tight end. The Will be on the outside, usually over nobody. You know what I'm saying? Or they hit, yeah. So he's on the line of scrimmage. He's a rush guy and a drop guy. Both guys are. I envision Hassan Reddick being that Sam linebacker on that side, that strong side. But what I was saying is it could be interchangeable because now, because they're going to be running so much 3 down with the defensive line, I see them using Brandon Graham in that position also, and then putting not Kazir White, but Hassan Reddick on the Will linebacker, that guy that's in space that could rush, drop off in coverage. But he's there over the tight end that if he had to cover, he probably could. It'd be tough for, a guy like Brandon Graham. Mm-hmm. But, he's a defensive end-s type of player that's going to rush the passer for the most part. But he has to be the consideration as a linebacker because that's where he's going to be lined up. On the outside, another guy that's going to fit that mold is Derek Barnett. He's also going to be a guy like that. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be interchangeable. And you also have to put Josh Sweat at the same position. So all those guys are going to be at that. It's still a down lineman, but it's going to be a linebacker, type of player that they're going to use. What's the guy we talked about as far as the coaching with the wide 9?
Washburn.
Washburn. Well, Washburn, that's Washburn-esque type of guy. He's going to be the guy that's going to be putting guys in and taking guys out at that position.
I almost feel like we got to throw the depth chart out when it comes to these positions. Honestly, you can't really go by that, and you can't you can't say hey, there's 7 linebackers because there's some hybrids in there, and it's a little bit of a different feel to it.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of quality. Right. These are great problems to have, but there's a lot of quality guys here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then, so then on the outside, at the Hassan Reddick, the wheel linebacker position, there's some guys there. You got Hassan Reddick can play there. Then they've got their 6th rounder in Kyron Johnson from Kansas. He showed me a lot in camp. He's looking pretty good. They got Patrick Johnson, 7th rounder from last year. That's going to be at the same position also. So, I mean, it's for the first time, the linebacker position is pretty clogged up. How many linebackers are you going to keep? Because they're linebackers / defensive ends that are in the mix also.
But doesn't it feel like in the case of, say, Sean Bradley, you can just forget position. Some guys are just special teamers. Matthew Slater forever for New England. It doesn't really matter what the position is. Right. You can't. I'm sorry, man. I see a lot of people saying, Sean Bradley's probably not going to make this team. You're going to let a special team player of that caliber walk away?
There are a whole lot of players in the NFL that make the teams based on their special teams prowess. Yep. And Sean Bradley is one of those guys that fall in that category.
And it's not like he can't play linebacker if guys go down.
Exactly. And Barry, you were talking about the significance between the mic and the will. And as you were talking, I could see them moving. I can see them moving Kazir White around to play over the tight end, only in passing down situations because he's a good cover linebacker as well. So I don't see Hassan Reddick as a cover. You know what his claim to fame is? Going after the quarterback and holding your ground against the run. So I can see them playing games, moving Kazir around and play over the tight end, especially when it's 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations playing against opponents.
That's why Washburn is such a key in making sure he puts in the right personnel packages on certain downs.
You mean Gannon?
No, Gannon's the DC.
Oh, okay.
But, he needs somebody. Yeah. He's Washburn's the guy that coaches that position.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Those outside wide linebacker position, he is that guy.
Here's what they're going to come down to when we talk about D tackle, D ends, linebackers. Somebody's not going to be happy with the lack of playing time.
You're right about that.
There are going to be several players that are going to be the odd men out when it comes to snap. And I mean, there's going to be a big discrepancy between the first 2 levels of rotation and that 3rd level. And this team has a pretty good problem of having 3rd level depth at those positions. And somebody's not going to be happy watching the game from the sideline.
Agreed.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. The linebacker coach actually also is Nick. Was it Reyes? Nick Reyes, Rallis Reyes.
Yeah.
He's the linebacker. He's the one that's gonna. He's the one to be the guy that's gonna coach the Mike backer and the Jack backer.
Okay.
He's the stand-up linebacker guy. Then on the outside, like we said, Washburn is the outside linebacking coach. And then you got Tracy Rocker, who's going to, coach those 3 techniques, the nose guards and the defensive end / head up ends or tackle positions on top of the tackles. So it's going to be tough trying to figure out who and where things are. I mean, I'm looking at it. It's going to be tough for them to really get that. So how do you dictate who's making the squad or not? I mean, I couldn't tell you right now who's going to make a position in certain. That's why I told you guys like, I don't know if we can, talk about it enough. We can't talk about it enough because there's so much that you have to take in to factor in at the linebacker position. This is a great problem to have because we have so much talent in so many places that, you don't know who's going to be here, who's not going to be here. Like I don't know why they signed Barnett back.
Yeah, if you keep 7 linebackers, how many DNs are you keeping?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, seriously, there's only so many pieces to go around. I mean, how many DNs? I mean, the back end will take care of itself. But when you talk about the wealth of talent that they have at the DN, D tackle, linebacking position, man, how many do you keep?
There's going to be a good player or 2 that are going to be released.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, look at the interior guys. Look at the interior defensive linemen. Of course, you're going to keep Fletcher Cox because you're paying him a lot of money. Yep. Javon Hargraves, you got to keep him. You know why? Because he's the only guy that can really transition seamlessly from 1-2 gapping technique to being a 1-gap technique. What I mean by that, if you're running a 3-4 defense, that nose guard has to virtually be a 2-gap guy. He has to handle both A gaps on each side of the center. He's got to hit him, take control of that guy right there, and stay right there in the hole and keep the guards from getting up to the linebacker on run plays. He's the only one that's done that, and I mean, Davis has done it when he was in college. Fletcher Cox hasn't done that before. He doesn't want to do it. He made it plain and evident he didn't want to do it. But he understands in order for him to be successful here, he's going to have to do it. So that's Fletcher, Hargraves. You got to keep him because he knows the system. Davis, you're going to keep him because he's the first rounder. But then you have Milton Williams. Milton Williams is going to factor into this also.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? They got Marlon, Tuapola?
Yeah.
Whatever his name is, from USC from last year, 6th rounder from last year. He's got it, he wants to make the team also. A guy that nobody's really talking about, but who's been dominant in these last practices, even though we don't have any pads on, was Marvin Wilson, number 73. He showed a little bit as far as two-gapping that other guys couldn't do. He's been able to do it. So there's so many, so much versatility in these guys. And a guy from last year is probably going to be cutting out of the whole situation is Taron Jackson, number 75. Yeah. Remember, he was a good pass rusher towards the end of the year.
That's right.
Yeah, yep. No question. Yep. Interesting stuff. All right. So we come back. We're going to keep going with this. We did receiver. We did linebacker. We're going to dive into safety, running back, and tight end. We'll get in all those spots. And again, some of this could be, what's after the starter? How does this thing break down? Do they still need to add to those positions? We'll get into all that when we come back. Barrett Brooks, Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network.